Now let's go into, I'm still tapping here, the resources, because somebody's listening and saying the 10X, like I'm $1 million. I want to do 10 million by next year. But what would be required of me to let go to hit the 10 million is the thing that's currently funding me right now.
Yep. So this is a really awesome question. It's common. So let's look at it. One of the things that I think is really interesting is that the future is a tool. This is important to realize. The future is a tool. As an example, Caleb thinking about the future of going pro to generate pathways, right? But the future is also actually oddly the source of the resources. It's weird. It's like, I look at the future.
Okay, wait. I think I need to admit it.
I know.
The future is a source of resources.
It is.
How so?
Gosh.
Well, because think about it. So you've heard of the concept of like supply and demand, right? So you have certain supply and that generates demand, right? If there's low supply in stuff, it might have high demand. So psychologically, it's actually the opposite. Psychologically, it's demand that creates resources. So like you've probably heard it said, when the why is strong enough, you will find the how.
Yeah.
Also you'll find the who. And so that why and the depth of it, and even the specificity of it, is what creates the how. It's also what creates the resources. And so, if there's a reason, as an example, if there's a reason that I've got to make $10 million in the next 30 days, that's a future that's now demanding of me to find that $10 million that I otherwise wouldn't have needed to even look for, figure out, or solve had I not had that future. And so the future determines what resources are needed. Elon Musk, I apologize to use him twice, but he needs to figure out billions of dollars of funding and even rocket technology and innovation to achieve his goal. All of that's coming from his goal. All of the creation. Can I give you an example?
Please.
I'll give you an example. So there is and this is someone who actually almost 10x'd in 60 days. And so this is a really fun example. So this is a guy in South Carolina who has a property management company.
Okay.
So he has another business as well, but this is a property management company. So if you own 2 or 3 houses and you don't want to deal with the rent, like the renters, you let them manage your company. You let them manage the houses, right? They handle the whole thing. So when I met him, so I did like a challenge at the end of 2023. So it was for the last 60 days of 2023, November and December.
Okay.
And so it started on November 1st and it ended January 1st.
Okay.
So we had 60 days. He came in, and at that time, his property management company had 2 employees, phenomenal employees. Again, this is a smaller business. It was doing probably low 6 figures, but they had 60 properties under management. And it would taken them 2 years to get there, and so they probably had 20 or 30 clients. Some of them had 1 house, some of them had 3 or 4. And so he joins the challenge. He learned some of these ideas I'm sharing, that the future is what determines the present. And basically I say, set an impossible goal for the next 60 days. And then let that be the determining factor of what you say yes and no to, and go find those better pathways, right? And so he was listening to this, thinking about it, and ultimately he set the goal of having 500 properties under management by the end of the year. So going from 60 to 500, almost a 10x.
That feels impossible.
It is impossible, yeah. But again, the idea of impossible is that it's impossible, again, from the context of your current self.
Yes.
And so based on your current knowledge, resources, based on your current knowledge team, etc. And you don't know how to do it. And so he went to his team of 2 and he said, here's the goal. We're going to have 500 in the next 60 days. I don't know how we're going to do it, but let's start strategizing again from the goal. Let's start figuring it out. What do we do?
From the future.
Yeah.
Pulling from the future.
Yeah.
Yes.
You always strategize from the future, because if you're strategizing from your current situation, that's, again, what we call 2x.
Yep.
You're just trying. They couldn't actually achieve the 500 by approaching it the same way they did to get to 60, because we just didn't have time to get it by 1s and 2s.
Okay.
And so ultimately they started looking at their Rolodex, looking at things, and even, again, to the idea that the impossible goals lead to exploration of new solutions or ideas or knowledge that you wouldn't have been looking for had you didn't have the goal. So ultimately, of course, they started looking for people with hundreds of houses. The strategy, the idea that came from that, and then beginning to look for where these kind of people are. How do we get in touch with these kind of people? Ultimately, and he also added 2 team members. When you have an impossible goal, it's going to be a fundamentally different level of commitment than you've ever committed to. because the goal is so big, you're going to have to commit, and big part of commitment is investment. You're going to have to be committed more than you've ever been committed to. This is what scares people. This is the idea of risk as well as resources.
Yes.
Where do we get the resources to make this investment, right? So anyways, he did add 2 team members because he was so committed to the goal. He's like, I know we can't do it with just you 2.
Yeah.
So he added 2 A+ players, and basically this is a really big difference between leadership and management is that managers manage the process, whereas leaders give a very, I'll call it, impossible goal. And so, leaders help people achieve things that they didn't think were possible, and they show them how. They support them in doing it. Like, that's pretty much the definition of a transformational leader. And so he gave them the impossible goal, and he said, you guys figure this out, solve it. I'm here to support. I'm going to be trying to solve it too. And so he didn't give them the how, because the how they didn't know.
Right.
But he gave them the goal, and it was inspirational. And ultimately, they ended the year with 320, right? So they didn't finish the year with the 500, but they did find way new, amazing ways of finding people that they weren't deploying before. And they did find one person with like 160. They found someone with like 75, whatever it was. They found like 3 or 4 big clients that took them to 320. And so in those 2 months, they over 5x their business.